The Intergalactic Academy of Harmony floated between the stars like a silver crescent. It was the pride of the Galactic Council, a place where young beings from hundreds of worlds trained to become peacekeepers and explorers. Every corridor glowed with soft light. Voices of different tones and languages filled the air. Among tall insectoids, crystal-skinned scholars, and scaled warriors walked a single, small human girl named Alara Quinn. She was the first human ever accepted into the academy. When she walked through the massive gates on her first day, everyone turned to look. Humans were new to the galaxy. Most aliens had only heard stories, that humans were emotional, impatient, and weak. Some found them interesting, others found them annoying. Alara had known this before she came, but she had promised herself one thing. She would not be a symbol of weakness. She would be a symbol of what a human could become. Alara's first months were difficult. Her classmates came from species that had been part of the Galactic Council for centuries. They had natural advantages. Some had 4 arms, some could see in 12 colors, some could lift cargo with their minds. Alara had none of that. What she did have was focus. She studied every night, replaying training hollows until her eyes ached. She learned alien languages, studied their anatomy, and practiced techniques again and again. When the others laughed at her size or her mistakes, she stayed silent and smiled. But there was one person who didn't like her silence. Her combat instructor, Kraltek, was a giant of a being, from the warrior race of Zarthians. His body was armored in natural plates, his arms thick as tree trunks, and his face carried scars from countless battles. He believed in power, visible, undeniable power. To him, strength meant dominance. And when he looked at Alara, barely up to his chest, he saw a joke. He called her the soft creature. He said things like, humans need to be protected, not trained. At first, Alara ignored him. She respected him, listened to his instructions, and tried to learn quietly. But Kraltek didn't want a quiet student. He wanted proof that a human could not belong among warriors. So one day he decided to make that proof himself. It happened during a combat mechanics class in the open training dome. The sky shimmered through the transparent walls as dozens of students gathered in a circle. Kraltek towered in the center, his voice booming like thunder. Today we learn balance and counterforce. A warrior does not resist power. He redirects it. He picked students one by one to demonstrate. When they failed, he corrected them with heavy hands, but never cruelly. Until he turned to Alara. You, he said, pointing a clawed finger. Human. Alara stepped forward, standing tall despite the nervous flutter in her chest. Yes, instructor. You are small, weak. Let us see if you understand balance. I do, sir, she said politely. It's about center of mass and motion vectors, Kraltek snorted. Words, always words. Show me. He lunged forward faster than she expected, one heavy arm sweeping toward her shoulder. Alara tried to shift her weight and redirect, but his size overwhelmed her. His clawed hand brushed her back, pushing her to the ground. The other cadets chuckled. Alara stood again, brushing off the dust. May I try again, instructor? Kraltek's eyes narrowed. He didn't like her calm tone. You may. She tried again, and again he knocked her down. A third time, a fourth. Each time she landed and rose silently. Kraltek's voice grew sharper. You think you can teach me? You think you know balance better than a Zarthian? Alara shook her head, breathing lightly. No, sir. I just know that my people use what we have. You taught us to redirect force. I am trying to learn it my way. Something in her voice, confident, yet respectful, irritated him more than defiance would have. Before she could move, he stepped forward and struck her across the face with the back of his clawed hand. The sound cracked through the dome like lightning. The room went silent. The blow wasn't meant to kill. For a Zarthian, it was a light strike, but for a human, it was heavy and enough to send her staggering back. Alara froze. Her cheek burned. A low buzzing filled her ears. Around her, dozens of alien eyes watched, waiting for the little human to cry, to break, to prove the instructor right. But she didn't cry. She took one breath. Then another, and something inside her, not anger but focus, locked into place. Alara straightened. She looked at Kraltek calmly. Instructor, she said softly. You said the rule is to redirect force, not resist it. He growled, towering over her. Do not quote my lessons to me, human. She didn't reply. She moved. Her small hand caught his wrist mid-motion, twisting in the opposite direction of his expected angle. It was a simple human martial art, Aikido, a technique designed to use the opponent's power against them. The motion was so quick, so precise, that Kraltek's balance broke. His massive weight shifted forward, and before he could recover, Ilara pivoted, using his momentum to throw him over her shoulder. The sound of his armored body hitting the floor echoed through the dome. Gasps filled the air. Ilara stood over him, breathing evenly. Her eyes met his. "Lesson 1, Instructor," she said quietly. "Never underestimate human reaction time." For a heartbeat, no one moved. Kraltek, stunned more by shock than pain, tried to rise, but his jaw hung awkwardly, dislocated from the impact when he hit the ground. Ilara stepped forward, kneeling beside him. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply took a small metallic tool from her training kit, a human multi-tool she always carried, and carefully adjusted his jaw hinge, resetting it with a precise click. The crowd murmured, unsure whether to cheer or stay silent. When Kraltek finally sat up, she handed him the tool. "Your jaw should function again, sir," she said politely. The silence broke into whispers. Some cadets looked amazed. Others looked afraid. But Ilara only stood straight, bowed slightly, and said, "Permission to return to formation, Instructor?" Kraltek's voice was rough. "Granted." After class, the story spread like plasma fire through the academy. "The human broke the instructor's jaw. She fixed it right after." She didn't even get angry. Every version added new details, but one truth remained. The small human girl had done something no one else had dared. She had stood up to a Zarthian war instructor, defeated him with technique, and then helped him recover. That night, Ilara sat alone in her small quarters, her cheek still bruised. She looked at her reflection in the mirror, at the mark where his hand had hit her. It hurt, yes. But inside, she didn't feel broken. She felt awake. Back on Earth, her father had once told her, "Being human means we don't stop when things are unfair. We adapt until unfair stops working." Now she understood what he meant. She touched the mark lightly, then smiled. "Adapt," she whispered. "That's what we do." The next morning, when she entered the training hall, whispers followed her like a shadow. Some cadets nodded in quiet respect. Others avoided her, not knowing whether she was dangerous or lucky. Kraltek was already there. His jaw was patched with a metallic brace. He didn't look angry, just thoughtful. When their eyes met, he gave the slightest nod. "Cadet Quinn," he said, his deep voice steady. "Report to the center." Ilara obeyed. "This class will observe your form. The human will demonstrate the concept of counterforce." The room stirred with surprise. He was letting her teach? Ilara took her position and began showing the technique slowly, explaining each step. Her voice was calm and clear. She spoke not like a student, but like someone who understood what she was saying. When she finished, Kraltek said nothing for a long time. Then he turned to the rest. "Remember this," he said. "Size and species do not define strength. Precision does. Focus does." He looked at Ilara again. Class dismissed. As the cadets left, one crystal-skinned student whispered to another, "Maybe humans are not weak after all." That night, alone in the training dome, Kraltek replayed the footage of the fight. He watched how the small human had moved, not with power, but with timing, with understanding. He had lived through dozens of wars. He had seen brute strength fail 1,000 times. Yet this small creature had shown something different, something that combined instinct and intelligence. He touched the repaired part of his jaw and gave a low, rumbling laugh. "Humans," he muttered. "Unpredictable little stars." The next day, the academy hummed with whispers. Ilara Quinn moved through the halls with her usual calm, but every eye followed her. Some cadets stared openly, curious. Others only dared glance from the corner of their eyes, unsure what to think of the tiny human girl who had defeated a Zarthian war veteran. Even the instructors watched, exchanging low murmurs. Kraltek, for his part, was silent. He had spent the night replaying the events in his mind. He had been struck, thrown, and even humbled by a species he had always considered inferior. But the part that unsettled him most was how calmly and respectfully she had acted afterward. When he entered the training hall that morning, the cadets parted instinctively. He was not angry, but there was a new weight in his presence, a quiet tension that made everyone instinctively straighten their posture. Alara approached, keeping her usual polite demeanor. She bowed slightly and said, "Instructor, permission to begin today's exercise?" Kraltek studied her carefully. He could not deny her courage. He could not deny her intelligence. And though it was hard for a Zarthian warrior to admit, he could not deny her skill. "Permission granted," he said finally, his voice low but steady. The day's exercise was a group lesson on reflex coordination. Cadets were paired with partners from different species to test how well they could adapt to unfamiliar bodies and unexpected movements. Most aliens struggled with humans because they were small, soft, and fragile. Alara, however, thrived. She moved with fluid precision, anticipating her partner's movements before they even made them. She did not rely on strength. She relied on timing, leverage, and thinking one step ahead. After several rounds, Kraltek stopped the class. The cadets froze, expecting criticism or a lecture. Instead, Kraltek walked toward Alara slowly, each armored step echoing through the hall. "Human," he said, his deep voice filling the room. "Come here." Alara obeyed, approaching him with measured steps. Her heart beat faster than usual, not from fear but from awareness. She knew this moment could change everything. He looked down at her, his eyes studying every motion, every muscle in her body. Then he said something unexpected. "Yesterday, you injured me." Alara nodded politely. "Yes, instructor. I did not intend to, but I acted to defend myself and apply the lesson you taught us." Kraltek's massive arms crossed. "You did not cry, you did not complain. And yet you struck a Zarthian veteran. You repaired my jaw afterward." Alara kept her expression calm. "Yes, instructor. I believe understanding comes from both action and repair." For a long moment, Kraltek said nothing. Then with a surprising tone, he asked the question that would echo through the academy for months. "Now, human, will you teach me properly?" The room went silent. The cadets could not believe their ears. The hulking instructor, feared by all, was asking the tiny human girl to teach him. Alara blinked, unsure if she had heard correctly. Then she realized he was serious. She took a breath and nodded. "Yes, instructor, I can teach." From that moment, something shifted in the academy. What had been ridicule and doubt toward humans became curiosity and respect. Other cadets crowded to watch their lessons. Aliens whispered, "The human is small, but powerful in ways we do not understand." The next weeks became legendary. Alara began teaching Kraltek techniques using her own human perspective. She emphasized precision over strength, timing over force, and thinking ahead instead of reacting blindly. Kraltek struggled at first. His body was built for power, not finesse. His instincts screamed to push, pull, and dominate. But Alara guided him with patience, correcting his movements and explaining principles in simple, clear ways. "You are trying to punch the problem away," she said one morning, gesturing at his swinging arm. "Instead, let the motion work with you, redirect, flow." At first he resisted. His pride as a veteran and his warrior instincts were too strong. But gradually he began to see the results. He moved with less effort, more accuracy, and, most shockingly, he began to enjoy the learning process. Other instructors and cadets watched the transformation in amazement. Some aliens who had mocked humans now tried her techniques themselves, learning that her small size did not mean weakness. One day, a group of cadets gathered near the observation deck. They were all watching as Alara demonstrated a new technique called reflex harmonization. It combined human intuition, timing, and reading the opponent's movements with minimal force. A young crystalline cadet whispered to a friend, "She's teaching a Zarthian how to fight better." "Not just fight," said her friend. "She's teaching him control, balance, respect for the motion itself." By the end of the exercise, Kraltek performed the technique almost perfectly. He moved with a fluidity that no one had seen from a Zarthian before. Alara smiled faintly. She could see the pride in his eyes even if he would never admit it aloud. But teaching was not easy. Not everyone accepted her. Some cadets were jealous. Some thought she was dangerous or that the Zarthian instructor had been humiliated unfairly. One evening, while reviewing lessons in the academy library, Alara overheard two cadets arguing. "The human is small," said a scaled warrior, flicking his tail nervously. "Why is Kraltek listening to her? She's not like us." "She is human," said a crystal-skinned scholar softly. And she has something all of us lack. She sees the motion. She understands balance. She thinks. The scaled warrior snorted. Thinking isn't enough. Strength wins. Alara closed her holopad quietly. Thinking was enough. It had been enough when she had disarmed the strongest cadet in yesterday's drills. Thinking, understanding, and acting decisively had saved her from humiliation. Humans had weaknesses, yes. But they had adaptability, and sometimes that was stronger than raw power. The following day, Kraltek asked Alara to demonstrate a more advanced technique. This time it was multi-species coordination. Cadets had to partner with beings who moved differently, whose reflexes were faster or slower, stronger or weaker. Alara moved first with a tall insectoid named Zarik. She adapted instantly to his 6 arms, anticipating his movements while guiding his momentum. Then she partnered with a crystalline scholar named Myrrh. The cadet's body refracted light unpredictably, making timing difficult. But Alara read the subtle shifts and corrected every misstep with patience and calm words. Kraltek followed beside her, trying to match her guidance. He stumbled at first, but soon he moved in rhythm with her instructions. Cadets who had doubted humans before now whispered among themselves, "Maybe the human is a teacher? Maybe humans are not weak after all." Even the veteran instructors were surprised. No human had ever influenced a Zarthian this way. No human had ever reshaped the thinking of so many cadets in such a short time. As the weeks passed, Alara noticed a change in Kraltek. He became more reflective. He asked questions instead of giving orders. He praised cadets when they succeeded rather than scolding them for failure. One afternoon during a calm practice session, Kraltek approached Alara quietly. "You changed something in me," he said. His voice was softer than usual. "I never believed humans could teach anything meaningful to a Zarthian." Alara smiled. "We learn the same way every other species does, by observing, understanding, and acting. Only we humans don't give up when the odds are against us." He nodded, thoughtful. "Yes, you are. Persistent. And precise. I see now why the council allowed you here." Alara looked down modestly. She did not boast. But inside she felt a small surge of pride. Persistence and understanding had done more than her size or strength ever could. News of her teaching spread beyond the academy. The Galactic Council sent observers to watch her lessons. They wanted to see if humans truly had unique abilities that could not be replicated by brute strength or advanced alien biology. Alara continued her work, showing patience, focus, and intelligence in every demonstration. Kraltek followed, learning, adapting, and even defending her when others questioned her methods. By the end of the term, one clear truth was visible to all. Humans might be small, but their mind and adaptability were unmatched, and a single human girl had changed the course of training for cadets across hundreds of worlds. That evening, as the sun of a distant star painted the academy in golden light, Alara sat on the observation deck looking at the cosmos. Kraltek stood nearby, silently watching her. "You've done well," he said finally, quietly enough that no one else could hear. Alara looked at him. "We are only beginning, Instructor. There is much to learn." He nodded, a rare smile flickering across his scarred face. "Yes, but perhaps now humans and Zarthians can learn from each other." Ilara's eyes sparkled. She knew this was true. Not because of size, strength, or even speed, but because humans adapt. Humans endure. Humans think. The Intergalactic Academy of Harmony had never faced a real emergency before. Its holographic drills and simulations were complex, yes, but nothing could truly prepare cadets for an unexpected crisis. It happened on a quiet morning, weeks after Alara had begun teaching Kraltek. The Academy's gravity control grid, a network of magnetic and gravitational fields used to simulate different planetary environments, malfunctioned. The lights flickered. Panels beeped erratically. Cadets floated in midair, some spinning uncontrollably. The instructors were momentarily paralyzed by protocol. Emergency procedures were in place, but none had expected the entire grid to fail simultaneously. Alara, who had been walking across the training hall with Kraltek, immediately assessed the situation. Her mind raced. Thousands of lives were at stake. Hundreds of cadets could be injured or crushed by the sudden shifts in gravity. She didn't panic. Humans could be small and fragile, yes, but humans had a unique gift: thinking under pressure. "Everyone, hold on to something stable," she shouted, moving quickly to a support beam. She grabbed a struggling cadet, adjusted their balance, and shoved them toward safety. Her movements were precise, almost instinctive. Kraltek, despite his size, was flailing. Gravity shifts affected him as severely as anyone else, maybe even more because he was heavier. Ilara reached him, grasped his massive arm, and pulled him toward a stable platform. "Human, I can handle this," he bellowed. "You can handle brute strength, Instructor." "I handle the grid," she replied, not taking her eyes off the chaos. She needed a solution. She ran to the control panels, noting that the gravity fields were out of sync. Some areas were overpowered, sending cadets spinning into walls. Others were underpowered, leaving people suspended mid-air, unable to move. Most instructors would have waited for backup. Most aliens would have panicked. Not Ilara. She began rerouting the grid manually. With no procedural guide, she used her knowledge of Earth engineering and human improvisation. She adjusted magnetic polarities with spare metal rods she found, reconnected auxiliary circuits with emergency tools, and calculated new vector alignments in her head. "Magnetic resonance plus angular momentum will stabilize this sector," she shouted to herself, connecting two panels with a metal bar. A nearby cadet, a young insectoid, floated past. "What are you doing?" he asked, terrified. "Trust me," Ilara said. "I'm human. We're good at fixing things fast." Her confidence had a strange effect. Cadets nearby stopped struggling in panic and started assisting her under her direction. Kraltek, seeing her in action, finally understood what humans could truly do. He shouted commands, not orders, directing cadets to follow her strategy. "Humans think differently," he muttered aloud, almost to himself. "Different. And faster. Perhaps stronger than brute force." Within minutes, Ilara had stabilized several critical sectors of the training grid. Cadets who had been spinning helplessly were now able to move. Gravity normalized in key areas, preventing injuries. She didn't stop. She moved from one unstable zone to another, calculating each adjustment as if she were playing a complex game of three-dimensional chess. A crystalline cadet, who had been floating near a wall, called out, "How are you doing this?" Ilara glanced briefly. "Humans survive by adapting. That's all." Despite her small size, every cadet in the hall followed her lead. Some assisted physically. Others followed her instructions. Even Kraltek, the massive war veteran, moved in coordination with her, his experience combined with her adaptability. By the time the emergency backup drones arrived, Ilara had already restored most of the gravity fields. Only minor corrections remained. The drones stabilized the remaining sectors, and the academy fell silent. Cadets landed safely on the floor, still shaken but unharmed. For the first time in academy history, a human had solved a crisis faster than the veteran instructors. After the chaos, Kraltek gathered the cadets in the main hall. His voice was loud and commanding, but this time it carried respect rather than intimidation. "Cadets," he said, "today you witnessed a lesson that no manual could teach. This small human girl, Ilara Quinn, showed us something remarkable. Strength is not measured by size. Power is not measured by speed alone. True strength comes from understanding, adaptation, and quick thinking under pressure." The cadets erupted in applause. Many had never seen Kraltek praise anyone so openly. Some cadets were in tears, not from fear but from awe. Ilara blushed slightly and bowed. She did not speak much. Humans were not proud of the things they did. They measured success by results. The Galactic Council, which had been observing from afar, took note. A senior member approached Kraltek privately. "In all our records," the counselor said, "no human has ever demonstrated such command and ingenuity. She has changed our understanding of your species." Kraltek nodded. "Ike underestimated humans. Not anymore. One girl has done what centuries of training could not." In the following weeks, the Academy formally introduced what would become known as the human principle: adaptability over brute force, understanding over reaction, thinking under pressure as true strength. Cadets from all species practiced new drills inspired by Ilara's techniques. Even the strongest Zarthians and the fastest insectoids found themselves learning patience and observation, skills they had rarely valued before. Ilara continued teaching, not for fame, not for recognition, but because she knew the galaxy had much to learn from human thinking. Kraltek became her assistant, following her guidance and helping other cadets understand that strength and power were not enough. He often muttered to himself, humans, small, fragile, persistent, they survive by thinking. Perhaps they are. The most dangerous species we have ever encountered. Dangerous in this sense meant capable, clever, unstoppable in ways brute force could not match. Ilara's influence went beyond the training halls. Reports of her actions during the gravity field crisis reached distant worlds. Ambassadors and observers from alien civilizations visited the academy to see the small human girl who rewrote the rules. Cadets who had mocked humans before now asked to train with her. They wanted to see how her mind worked, how she solved problems, and how she could turn disadvantage into opportunity. Ilara taught all willing to learn. Her methods were simple: observe, understand, adapt, and act decisively. No species had approached challenges this way before. Humans did not rely on raw power. They relied on creativity, intellect, and courage. One afternoon, after a long day of instruction, Kraltek approached her quietly. "You have done more than I imagined," he said. "The academy has changed because of you." "The cadets? My fellow instructors? Even I have changed. I used to believe strength was all. Now I understand that it is only part of the picture." Ilara smiled faintly. "It's what humans have always done, Instructor. We survive because we learn, we adapt, and when necessary we act." He nodded, a rare smile crossing his scarred face. "Then it is true. Humanity is not small, not weak, and this small human girl has shown the galaxy what we all can become." By the end of the term, the Academy formally honored Ilara Quinn. The announcement was simple but profound. For demonstrating the power of adaptability, intellect, and human ingenuity, Cadet Ilara Quinn shall be recognized as the Academy's youngest instructor and a symbol of the human principle. Cadets cheered. Aliens bowed slightly in respect. Kraltek stood silently, nodding, proud yet humble. Ilara, as always, remained modest. She did not crave titles or recognition, but deep inside, she knew something important had happened. The galaxy had learned that humans were not defined by size or strength, but by the mind and spirit that refused to give up. And the small human girl, once struck in arrogance, had become the teacher who rewrote the rules of the Academy, not with force, but with intelligence, courage, and heart. As she gazed out of the Academy's observation deck at the stars stretching endlessly before her, Ilara whispered quietly, "Strength is not in power. Strength is in knowing what to do, and having the courage to do it." And somewhere deep in the heart of every cadet, every alien, and even in Kraltek's massive chest, the truth sank in: humans were a force to be respected, feared in admiration, and understood. Because sometimes, the smallest being could make the biggest difference.